Versatile Mage. Chapter 323. Chasing after the commander-level beast. The giant lizards gathered from all directions, led by the tyrant lizards. Meanwhile, their highest commander, the razor-tailed drake, was standing on top of a ruined shopping mall. Most of the structure had eroded away, and it could barely hold the weight of the razor-tailed drake, certain parts of it already beginning to collapse. Mo fans gaze at the razor-tailed drake across an ocean of giant lizards, and a ravaged street that used to be the liveliest section in the city was full of provocation. It was obvious that the razor-tailed drake had thick skin, but it was still fairly lively after swallowing the giant fireball. Was its stomach made of steel? No wonder it was bold enough to swallow everything. That being said, it was rather naive trying to use its troops of giant lizards to buy some time. Vanishing Wolf Shadow. As he spread his arms, the soul shadow behind him began to contort as several shadow wolves jumped out of the giant shadow. With a point of his hand, the wolves dashed across the lengthy street. The wolves crossed paths with flickering claws. The power of the soul shadow was transformed into sharp weapons, piercing through the giant lizards with ease. The demon beasts were sliced in half from their heads to their tails. Some had clean cuts on their necks, some had their stomachs ripped open, while others were torn to pieces instead. The shadow wolves summoned by Mo Fan were like hungry ghouls. Their trails were fountains of bloody mist, the slow giant lizards butchered before they could react. A huge bloody mist swallowed the street, amputated limbs scattered in the air. It was quite impossible to see any giant lizard still in one piece when looking ahead. The shadow wolves were like amputating experts. Every demon beast was turned into pieces of meat regardless of how sturdy they were. The servant-class giant lizards stood no chance at all. They could only use their numbers by stacking into a long meat shield. Their chances of surviving were completely dependent on whether the shadow wolves passed close to them. Mo Fan clearly remembered the feeling he had when he first witnessed the savagery and cruelty of the demon beasts. He felt himself extravagantly tiny before them, and now, the tables had been turned. The demon beasts were petty and inferior as they were ordered around by the tyrant lizards. The entire pack of giant lizards could only be used as a sacrifice to protect their leader from a true expert's attack. The razor-tailed drake had no mercy and love for its minions. As a matter of fact, the growth of a demon beast to commander level was only made possible through the countless deaths of demon beasts of the same species. Even if the entire pack were to die here, it would be fine as long as the razor-tailed drake lived. The giant lizards continued to crawl in the demonized Mo Fan's direction. Mo Fan did not need to attack himself, as the wolf shadow on his back was enough of a nightmare for the giant lizards. Each time the sharp claws of the shadow wolves swiped through the air, a great chunk of blood and flesh would splatter out, while their soul remnants were sucked away by the pendant on Mo Fan's neck. Today was definitely the most exciting day for the little loach pendant ever. It continued to shiver on Mo Fan's neck, like a kid crying out in joy. It continuously absorbed the soul remnants, as if it would never have enough. On top of that, it seemed to have a bigger appetite the more it ate. The little loach pendant refused nobody, be it the soul remnants of servant-class demon beasts, the occasional soul essence that would pop up among the dead bodies, or the soul remnants of the tyrant lizards. It was happy to accept them all. The river inside the pendant was densely packed with glowing green dots. That being said, the little loach pendant was still the most interested in the razor-tailed drake's soul. The little loach pendant had never tasted the soul of a commander-level demon beast before. Such a high-grade soul would be very useful in helping it to level up. A bunch of them are coming toward us. Zhao Manting cried out in panic. There was no way he could handle these many giant lizards on his own. Currently, Zhao Manting was the only one who could use magic among the four of them. Zhao Manting's scream immediately caught Mo Fan's attention. He turned around with a puzzled look. He ran forward and jumped around 100 meters away from Zhao Manting and landed right behind the group. The wolf bloodlines on his legs began to glow brightly, as if the runes of a curse were freshly painted on him. They even started to pulsate. The glow from the bloody lines transformed into a murderous flicker as Mo Fan's legs began to accumulate an overwhelming dark energy. Mo Fan fired the crimson glow off with a kick, which slashed forward in a crescent shape. The giant slash sped forward at a crazy pace while staying parallel to the ground. "Brother, why are you kicking at the building?" Zhao Manting was left speechless. Mo Fan's attack was fairly shocking, but the problem was it was aiming at a building beside the street. However, halfway through Zhao Manting's grumble, Mo Fan kicked in another direction, firing another crimson crescent-shaped projectile at another building on the other side of the street. The two 30-meter crescents swept across the bases of the two buildings, cutting the cement walls and the supporting pillars in their paths. Without the support of the base, the two buildings slowly collapsed toward the street. They even collided into one another halfway during the fall and were smashed into debris before hitting the ground. The remains of the buildings crashed onto the street wildly, blowing the dust into the air. Debris stacked up and blocked the path of the giant lizards. It had formed a wall of steel and cement in front of the group, preventing the giant lizards from reaching Zhao Manting and the others. The wall had formed a protective barrier around the group, although Zhao Manting could not help but think that Mo Fan had gone a little overboard with his violent method. "It looks like the razor-tailed drake is leaving." Zhao Manting suddenly pointed at the giant beast, which was flapping its wings. Mo Fan refocused his gaze on the razor-tailed drake, which did happen to be rising into the sky while flapping its wings. A strong aura burst out from Mo Fan's body. He had no intention of letting the fat piece of meat go. He instantly disappeared with a flicker of motion. As Zhao Manting looked into the distance, he could see the demonized Mo Fan jumping continuously between the buildings, chasing after the razor-tailed drake. "Why the hell are you chasing it?" Zhao Manting was on the verge of breaking down. Did he seriously need to be that violent, chasing after a commander-level demon beast? Why can't we just leave this bloody place as soon as possible? Chapter end. Please guys like, comment, share, and subscribe.